How many more states are going to outlaw junk food on food stamps? Well, let's find out. So, South Carolina is now the newest state that has introduced legislation to prevent those using food stamps or SNAP from purchasing items like candy and soft drinks. Now, according to the bill, candy means anything with sugar, honey, artificial sweeteners in the form of bars, drops, and pieces. Soft drinks means carbonated beverages sweetened with sugar or artificial sweeteners, not to include milk and juice. Okay, well, that right there already got some issues because that's a pretty loose representation of what candy is.
Yeah.
And same thing with soft drinks, carbonated beverages. So that means it includes carbonated water, it includes diet sodas. There's a whole lot of things out there with carbonation.
Yeah.
Now, here's where I found this interesting. So, according to a report published in the National Library of Medicine, those on SNAP benefits purchase 40% more sugar sweetened drinks than those who were not. Sugar sweetened doesn't mean soda, but that's what they're trying to say. That you keep seeing this report saying that people on food stamps purchase 40% more of soda. No, it's just sugar sweetened drinks.
Yeah.
See, that's a little oofy. It says that soft drinks accounted for only 6.9% of the grocery bills of SNAP users. So 7%. So out of every $100, $6.90 went towards,
Soft
soda.
drinks. Yeah.
I mean, and that's like 2 liters. Okay, that's not a lot.
Yeah.
Of course, the American Beverage Association is against the legislation, and they're claiming that beverages are not driving the obesity rates, that the latest data shows that adult obesity rates have increased even as soda consumption has decreased, that by limiting choices made by restricting SNAP purchases is a slippery slope that won't make Americans healthier. It is a government overreach that takes away choices from families. Now, this bill hasn't officially passed. It still has to go to committee and all that. But there are currently 10 states that are trying to pass bills to remove junk food from food stamps. Now, here's the part that nobody talks about, okay? So, say a state actually does pass a law saying we're going to ban this. You can't buy candy or soda with food stamps. It's all fine and well. The USDA funds food stamps.
Right.
So, the state, they pay some of the money towards food stamps, but the majority of it comes from the federal government. That means that a state cannot outlaw what can be purchased. Only the USDA can. So then a state would have to then petition the USDA to get a waiver to remove those items. And I can tell you that this has been attempted multiple times in the last 20 years.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if there's a Republican or a Democratic president. No state has ever gotten this waiver before. Now, they've gotten plenty of other waivers, like waivers were actually really widely used during the whole coronavirus thing. And that included where they were shortening the application process, allowing online grocery orders, suspending time limits. All that kind of stuff requires a waiver that has to be approved. Okay. And no waiver has ever been approved for a state that basically bars recipients from buying food based on how healthy they are. Okay. Yeah. And excluding any foods would actually require Congress to change the law. Okay. I'm telling you right now, I don't think this is ever going to happen.
It's so hard to get Congress to do anything. Anything. This is not the top of their list. They're not in the business of pissing off their constituents. Just saying.
No. And then, so what makes it even kind of funnier, okay? So back in 2007, the Agriculture Department actually, the officials rejected a whole bunch of waivers that were very similar to this. And in that paper, that basically they rejected it based on there is no clear standards that exist to define foods as good or bad or healthy or not healthy. And in addition, the agency said these restrictions would be difficult to implement, they would be complicated to implement, and they would be costly to implement.
Yeah.
And that at the end of the day, they might not change the recipient's food purchases or reduce conditions such as obesity. Because, in the grand scheme of things, when they are looking at the sales that are made, that are paid for by food stamps, it is a very small category, meaning that it doesn't show what items were purchased by WIC, because you have to scan WIC first before food stamps. And WIC is where people usually get their fresh fruits and vegetables. It also doesn't show, like, for instance, they interviewed a bunch of people that are on food stamps, and a bunch of them said they use their food stamps at the grocery store to buy meat, oil, milk, coffee, that all their fruits and vegetables come from a food pantry, that they
Yeah.
can't even purchase them. They have to go get them somewhere else. But if you're looking at that person's spending habits, it would say that they're 100% buying chicken, coffee.
Yeah.
You know what I
But
mean?
those are high dollar items.
Exactly.
That's what you're going to use your benefits on, things that cost you a lot of money to stock in your house. So like it really, fruits and vegetables, I can go in and spend $20 to get the fruits and vegetables I need for our whole family for an entire week, if not two. Whereas like meat is going to be in the $60 range for 2 weeks worth of meat. So like I'm going to, if I had SNAP benefits, I'd use it on the high dollar items and not things that I want to
Absolutely.
buy fresh
And
on a
then
daily
just
basis.
and then just take what you can out of local free food giveaway or food pantry. I
Yep.
mean, it totally makes sense, because those places don't typically hand out meat. They
Right.
typically hand out, you know, canned fruits and vegetable, stuff like that. Now, here's what's interesting is some states are starting to wisen up by basically being extremely detailed and categorizing what an item is. Okay. For instance, um, let's see here, soft drinks. Um, they would continue to allow drinks containing milk, milk alternatives, soy, almond milk, or drinks with more than 50% vegetable or fruit juice. Well, here's the problem with that. There are many juices out there that contain extremely high amounts of added sugar, but because they are more than half fruit juice by volume, would be allowed.
Hmm.
Another one that I thought this was actually extremely clever. It said that candy is characterized as any unrefrigerated, flourless preparation of sugar, honey, or other natural or artificial sweeteners in combination with chocolate, fruit, nuts, or other ingredients or flavorings in the form of bars, drops, or pieces. That's huge. Okay, that's a long, very big list. But it's not accurate, because by that definition, Kit Kat bars and Twix bars are not candy because they contain flour. You would still be able to buy those. Those are considered food. So, my point here is no matter how you characterize what junk food is,
Yep.
what candy is, what soda is, there's always going to be loopholes. And one of the big items here, the first two ones are unrefrigerated and flourless. How quick do you think that candy makers are going to now offer a refrigerated candy? Personally, I love Reese's cups in the freezer. They're just going to start selling them in the freezer.
Yep.
Okay? Second, how hard do you think it would be to add flour to candy? And we're not just talking about like all purpose flour. We're talking coconut flour, rice flour. There's a zillion different kinds, tapioca flour.
Yep.
Okay? This just says flourless. As soon as I add a flour, it's no longer a candy. And we already know that companies will do whatever it takes to sell a product.
Oh, 100%.
Okay. And what I find even funnier, though, is there is actually implications here. So if you truly were to get different foods banned, what are places that sell a lot of candy and soda? That would be your convenience stores. And a lot of convenience stores offer, where they take food stamps.
Right.
Well, if you can't buy candy or soda, then a lot of these places are going to say, well, we're not going to go through all these hoops to accept food stamps. So now you're actually taking food options because they may offer fresh fruits and vegetables like a basket of bananas or apples, or crackers or anything else.
Yeah.
But no, you're no longer going to have an option because that company's not even going to offer to take food stamps anymore.
Yeah, it's no longer advantageous for them in any way.
No. So I personally don't think this is going to go through, just simply for the fact that you cannot 100% across the board put foods into different categories, because what I think is junk food and what you think is junk food, there's always going to be gray areas. There's always going to be items that get caught up, and a lot of people want to do it by whether or not something is ultra processed or not processed, but there's a lot of healthy options that are considered ultra processed. Ultra processed is not unhealthy, and quote unquote sodas and candy, I'm not going to say they're the healthiest thing for you, but the dose is the poison is in the dose.
Yeah.
Having one candy bar is not going to immediately make you obese. Now, is there going to be changes? I mean, why are we attacking people on food stamps? Why are we not attacking the companies that make the food?
It's low-hanging fruit.
It is. It's so like low-hanging fruit. It's an excuse to cut benefits by not allowing people to buy what they intend to. And so, I mean, do you imagine how much political flack they would get by cutting benefits? No, we'll just make it to where you cannot buy everything that you normally are.
Well, we live in a country and a society right now that demonizes people for using social systems, right? For being so poor that you have to use social services like food stamps, Medicaid, whatever it may be, right? But a lot of times there are employers that aren't paying a wage that allows them to support their family. If you have a single mom and she's supporting even one kid, let's just make it one, working a full-time job that makes it where she can still spend time with her kid, be the kid be able to be in daycare because that's essential and you have to work within the hours that daycares are open.
Available.
Yeah, so you're limited by these things. And even if you have two parents, if you live in a high cost of living area and both of you are supporting one kid, daycare for one kid is absurd and it's not normally government subsidized. The only reason you receive subsidies is for, usually at least in Georgia, is for pre-K. And there might be some other individual programs that offer part-time, but the majority no.
I can tell you that, like, in the state of Georgia, just being low income does not give you any kind of break on childcare. You have to have so many mitigating factors. You would have to be homeless. You know what I mean? You would have to have a child with a special need, like a 504, or, you know what I mean? Like, just being low income is not going to get you help for childcare.
And childcare is absurd. Absurd.
And especially think about like newborn care.
Oh my God.
So if you were, a low income mom who just had a baby and your 6 weeks are done on maternity leave, if you even got maternity leave, because maybe you hadn't been working at that place for a year. So now you are getting no money at all. You can't bond with your child. You have to get your child into daycare. Newborn care is insane. You're talking like sometimes $1,600 for a week. That doesn't even cover the cost of formula, all
Diapers,
the other stuff.
wipes.
And it's like, I mean, way to kick a girl when she's down.
Yeah. So the easiest thing for us to do is, rather than go, hey, maybe there's a systemic issue we have here where there's a massive inequity between wages, goods and services, housing availability, housing costs. Oh my God, just trying to find a house that we can afford it's a whole story for a whole other week.
It is.
But
And there's one of the things that I do agree about recently is when you look at the amount that the government has been spending to basically subsidize help in other countries. Okay. Why are we not using that to help our own? Okay. There's so many homeless vets. You've got, literally starving children here in the US, but we're not helping for that, you
no, in
know?
fact, we're cutting the people who work for the VA, cutting that
Yeah.
massively. That's going to be super helpful. We're cutting the Department of Health, or the Department of Education. Department of Education actually does a lot of subsidies when it comes to special education and 504s and IEPs and being able to afford things like parapros and additional teachers in different classroom settings where you need an additional teacher. Uh,
Mhm.
the Department of Defense actually pays for or subsidizes lunches for cafeterias for schools, and
Yeah.
at least in a
The
lot of the
USDA
counties.
cut funding where schools were purchasing locally grown produce through the USDA to then be able to serve it to kids at, the lunchrooms. We've cut in those programs. But all I'm saying is that let's make food stamps the issue. These are
Mhm.
people that are already on help. Let's stigmatize it worse. Let's make it more difficult. Let's make it cost more to actually use these food stamps instead of why are we not looking at the actual problems here? So
It's a
tell us
great
down
question.
below. Do you think that there is an actual definition that applies to all candy and all soda? And I know y'all are going to tell me that you think this is a good idea, but does anybody out there think this is a bad idea? Let me know down below.